There's another one you don't want to hear. Frankly, if you want.
1, 2, 3, set, go.
Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the Power Chord Hour podcast. Thank you so much for tuning into another one. As always, I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, here with you. And hard to believe here, we are halfway through the year. So that means it is time to do, it is really our second annual, I guess, but talk about best albums of the year so far and get into a few records here that has come out so far in 2021 that are just excellent, you know, front to back, just modern masterpieces if you want. Then again, though, you know, time really does tell, and I've realized this because I was never an album of the year kind of guy up until I started doing the radio show. I mean, obviously, you think of your favorite albums of the year, but doing like a top 10 list per se, like I've always had a few of like my favorites, but more of like a top 3. Like to really think of like a top 10. But I realized the more that I kind of analyze like my listening habits or like, you know, what my favorites of the year and stuff are, I do realize that as I look back at like my top 10s of say like the last 5 years of doing the radio show, like it does change. And like, I don't know that I like hate any records. It's not like I would like retract anywhere. I'm like, oh, I can't stand it anymore, that album. But it's like, I will say I do see some where I'm like, ooh, you know, actually maybe like my number 9 might be like my number 1 and maybe even like my number, you know, hell, like maybe number 3, maybe I wouldn't have that on there. You know, maybe I don't hate it, but it might not even be on my top 10 list if I did like, you know, that would be fun sometime. Maybe do like revised lists for years, you know, I mean, maybe it's still a little too new now, but like down the road, go do like look at my top 10 lists that I've done, including for the radio show, doing like countdowns that I did, you know, long before doing the podcast, and just like, you know, a revised one. These were the albums I thought were the best in 2017 but these are the best albums from 2017 in, you know, 2020, whatever, you know, that I do it. But maybe I'll do that sometime. But yeah, this one we are doing some of my favorite albums of the year so far, and there's been some good music this year. And you know, I mean, last year obviously ended up being a pretty good year for music. You know, I mean, obviously with everything going on, not good for promotion or you know, concerts or anything like that. But as far as the amount of good music, I mean, tons and tons. We're still, I mean. Last week's guest, John Easdale of Dramarama, you know, if you listen to that one, talking about Color TV that they put out last year, you know, a lot of bands too like that, I feel like, put out records who hadn't in years. You know, it was their first one in 15 years. Jason from the Suicide Machines, we had him on last year, and they put out their first new record in like 15 years. You know, and all these bands putting them out who are putting out amazing music. Years and years after not putting anything out. So, you know, hopefully if you listen to that one, you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, go back and check that out and check out their album too. But yeah, 2020 had, again, very, very shitty year, I think goes without saying. But, you know, pretty good music. And 2021, I would say overall has been pretty good. I don't feel like, though, I will say, I feel like around this time last year, I feel like I had more albums where I would feel very definite that it's like, oh, this one's going to be on my top 10 or this will be in my, you know, top whatever. I feel like this year I have less albums like that. I have a lot of albums that I really, really like, but I have, if you know what I mean, like, if that makes any sense, like I really, really like a lot of them, but there's still some, and not all of them. I mean, there's a few in here I won't tell you yet till I get into them, but like there's a few where I go, oh, definitely that's going to sit up there. Like that's my favorite or going to be one of my favorites. But there are some albums where it's like, I really like this, but I'm like, I'm surprised there's not more to rival it. You know what I mean? Like I kind of, even when getting albums for this one ready, it's like, 'cause, you know, I don't want to do too many. I don't make it like 3 hours talking about my favorite albums of the year. But, you know, a nice like a handful of artists and albums and stuff to talk about. And yeah, I feel like it was easier this year than last year to do the like best of so far kind of thing. But I do have here quite a few records, so we will get into them. And I'm having fun. This is my second pod of the night. I'm recording this actually Sunday morning because it is 1 a.m. now. But if you checked it out, I did a little bonus Power Chord Hour episode with Kyle Steven, my buddy Kyle, and Take Off Your Pants and Jacket turned 20 on Saturday, so we could just kind of talk about that record. And not even really a rundown, not like track by track, though we did end up, Kyle figured it out. I didn't even realize it till he mentioned it, but we did kind of talk a little bit about every song, but not like in order sequence, not like one of our album rundowns. But I did that earlier in the night that I'm recording this, I did it earlier in the night with him, then left the studio, went and got some coffee, came back, and is now currently 1:08 a.m., and that coffee is kicking in, and I am ready to talk new music. But yeah, I mean, this is the other thing too, is maybe I like doing this too because it reminds me what's been out so far in the last 6 months, because I do. I have people who send me music to play on the podcast and the radio show. You get stuff sent to you. You get things available to you that I go looking for. I actively look for new music and stuff. Like, there's new music being thrown at me left and fucking right. So, like, it's very easy. And actually, I was just talking about this to Kyle after we did the Blink episode. I was sitting on the comfortable couch that is in the studio in here that I'm not on right now, but I wouldn't mind being on because, goddamn, it is comfortable. But anyways, talking to him about that and just about, like, how much new music that I digest, that, like, there are times where I think I don't know, maybe jaded's the wrong word, but I don't know. I'll use it because I can't think of another one. But, like, you just kind of become jaded on it where it's like I'm listening to new music all the time where, like, the albums themselves I never get to give a full chance. Like, I'm listening to a few songs here and there, and it's like maybe I don't give it enough time to grow, because it's like if I hear a few songs in, I'm kind of like, well, I'm either in or I'm out. Whereas, sometimes an album takes a few listens to really grow on you, And, yeah, I think sometimes I'll overlook things. But, 6 months in, I'm just listening to so much that I kind of like doing this because it reminds me some of my favorites, when I start to, really think about what my favorites have been. And also nice, hopefully I spread the word on a few that maybe you haven't heard. A lot of these bands I've probably talked about in our monthly rundowns and stuff. But actually, this band, I know I didn't because I discovered them later on. But I think I've talked about them a little bit on here. I don't know. I play them a good amount on the radio show. So, I've been talking a lot about on there. I don't know how much I've talked about them. But first record, and I got to say, check this out. This one I'm pretty strong on probably being up there in my top 10 by the end of the year. But a band by the name of Liquids and their album Life is Pain Idiot, great album title. And this one came out back in January, so started. It was like I think maybe like January 31st, so like the last. Funny enough, two of my favorite records. One on the first day of January, first of the new year, and then the other like on the last day. But anyways, this is if you've not heard this band, I feel like too. What I love is, and obviously you can't see it now because this is a podcast and not a video one, but if you go look up a picture of the album art, it's like the name of the band, the name of the album artwork, like all of it just fits so well together for this record. Let me put it this way. The record has 27 songs on it and it's 43 minutes. Like it's just it just everything about it. Everything about that just works with the record, but it's just really fun, like fast kind of hardcore punk. I'd say like very kind of 80s hardcore reminiscent of like, Black Flag, Misfits, kind of things like that, but like really done in a good way because I feel like that era and that genre's kind of been, including in the last, like I feel like in the 2010s, there were so many bad bands who were like, they were kind of like pseudo punk, but really kind of like indie bands who like kind, you know what I mean? Like, we're like trying to sound like Black Flag or something, like try to sound something that was like 30 years older, but it just always, I shouldn't say always, because there are examples of those bands who are actually pretty good, but there's more, I would say more of them were bad and just sounded like a novelty, because it's just like, you know, it was trying to sound like an era and a time and place when it's like that all sounded that way because it was released in the era it did. You know what I mean? The production sounded like that because it was 1981, or, you know, that was all they had, or, you know, they didn't have a lot of money to record, or whatever it is. And they just do this really shitty like replication of it. And I think on this album, you hear the influence and you hear where it's like, oh yeah, because I do actually, I would say this album could have been released 40 years ago. Like, I think this album could have been released in 81 and would have fit in with what was coming out at that time. But again, but that's what I mean, like in a good way. Like, a lot of bands release things, it's like, no, that wouldn't have been put out. Or if it was, they would have been the really shitty local band, and you never would have heard of them. Like, they would have put out one like 45 and broke up because no one would have liked them. But like, you have a band like Liquids where it's like, oh yeah, you hear that and it's like, oh, they would have fit in. Like, they're not like ripping off they would have been contemporaries with the bands that they sound like. And I would also say, I mean, outside, I know I keep kind of talking about like the 80s hardcore punk kind of sound, but I also get a very heavy like Exploding Hearts vibe and also Buzzcocks vibe, you know, very much in the vocals. Funny too, because they're a band from Indiana, but like, I think the vocals, they don't sound straight up British, but I feel like there's a tinge, and that's kind of the Buzzcocks, where like I feel like there's, and same with the Exploding Hearts, where they had that too, where, you know, they were a Portland band, but like had that kind of you know, pseudo like British accent or whatever, and I feel like you kind of hear it on here, and I can't remember the name of him, but basically, if I'm not mistaken, and actually I'll pull it up on Bandcamp here, which you can go buy this on Bandcamp, and but yeah, everything's played by like Matt, and I know he has other bands like, and it is the other thing I'll say, I randomly discovered this album and this band a few months ago on YouTube, and really, like, I got props to YouTube, because you do hear other people who you know, I know I'm not special, and actually it's not a bad way to find music these days to discover it, but it's like just finding random shit like in your recommended videos on the sidebar. Like, I don't know what I was watching or listening to on YouTube, but again, going back to the album artwork, it's like I saw the thumbnail with the album artwork of the you know, woman with the cigarette, and it was called Liquids Life is Pain Idiot, and I'm like, all right, I'll check that out. Like, I'll listen to that, and right away. Now, I will say, the funny thing is, at first, even though it is fitting for this music, there's two sides of this. It either could have been really fun, like hardcore punk, or it could have been really bad, like Midwestern emo. How like all these bands now have these like stupid names, just ridiculous, whether it's a pun or it's like just something. And I kind of saw that the name and the art and everything, and I'm like, there's so many bands who like, and they'll kind of get you that though, even though I'm calling them dumb names though. Sometimes you'll be like, oh, that band that has the weird fucking name and has a weird looking 90s like Polaroid, you know, album art cover, and like has a weird album title and shit, and it's like, oh, you kind of, you know, it's kind of quirky and kind of clever, but then you realize that's all the band has, and the music itself is bullshit. Whereas with Liquids here, you know, they obviously have a sense of humor to them, but the music like holds up. You know what I mean? Like, the music's actually good, and that's the thing I like about them is like, there are songs on here that kind of remind me of the Pukes, which are a great band that just put out one record back in like 2016, I think, like 5 years ago. I caught them once. They opened for the Descendants in Milwaukee back in 2017. They're really, really good. But my buddy Johnny put them out on Goodland Records. And I mean, I highly recommend go find that. The Pukes, Revenge of the Pukes was the Revenge of the Pukes. Go find that. I mean, wherever you get music, Bandcamp, anywhere like that. It was a great record. But like, anyway, like on that one is kind of the same deal, like lo-fi punk, a little less hardcore. The Pukes were a little less hardcore than this than Liquids are. But what I like, the comparison is they both have like that Misfits influence, but it's like they don't fully commit to the bit like the Misfits do. You know what I mean? Like they have songs on this record that like kind of get into that fiction, sci-fi, kind of even horror a little bit, like of you know, lyrical content of like a Misfit song, but their whole shit's not that. You know what I mean? It's not like that's their gimmick, but it's like they can kind of go back and forth of like songs where they use that imagery, but also can just write, you know, a straight up really great, you know, punk song. And, you know, kind of the same, the Pukes did that very well. And I think Liquids kind of has, the Pukes are another one like that, where again, I mean, you know, just look at the name of the band. It's like, you know, they kind of had that cleverness to them, but they could back it up with good music. And I gotta say, there's a couple covers on this, album. There is a Meatloaf cover, and there might even be another, I can't remember. I think there's another like classic rock cover, but the highlight, the cover that is a highlight, and I think one of the best songs on the record is Kiss's Strutter, and it is so good. I will tell, and I mean, you know how much I love the Replacements. I would say this cover is on par with the Replacements cover Black Diamond, and it's done in the same kind of vein. Like I said, like this record could have been released in like 81. Like, I mean, I think this band probably could have toured with the Replacements, like, you know, during the Twin Tone years. And I think just the same spirit of a punk band really like shedding a new light on a Kiss song, you know, in like a different way than you would hear Kiss do it. And absolutely love it. That is one of the best, I would say, songs on the record. But like, again, there's 27 songs, and it's really fun. You know, there's a few songs that I think clock in at like 2 something, maybe 3 minutes, but it's like there's a lot of like minute long, minute 30 songs. You know, I mean, I'm talking about a cover, but like my favorite song on the record that my favorite song on the record, Don't Want to Get to Know You. That's another one, and like that one just comes and goes, like just short and sweet, really good. And I mean, I think that's like a minute something. And, you know, but that's all you need. Like, that's all you really, like, the band just cuts the fat out. Like, it's really just, like, simple. And, like, even with the sound effects, it's like, it's a raw album. Like, it's kind of lo-fi and raw. And again, sounds like it had been released in, like, 81, but it is produced enough in the sense that it doesn't sound like a shitty home recording. Like, it's lo-fi, but not lo-fi in the way where it just sounds fucking terrible to listen to. Like, this is a good sounding record in terms of it, like, sonically. Like, you can listen to it. It doesn't hurt your ears, but it's still a really raw fucking record. You know what I mean? Like, it is a little more you know, it's like a better sounding version of the Misfits. You know what I mean? It's kind of like there's songs on there where it's like a maybe little, like a clearer version of like a Walk Among Us, you know, song. But yeah, I like this band. There's not a lot, there's not a lot of info on them. I was getting to it earlier, and I was kind of talking about how I discovered them on YouTube, but like I kind of was seeing you know, Matt's name, I believe it was Matt, who I believe he plays everything in Liquids. I just pulled that up, I know, on Bandcamp. I got kind of sidetracked there. Yeah, performed by Matt, and then tambourine recorded by Eric. And yeah, so I mean, there's 2 people on this whole record, and he's just extremely talented. And I guess he's in like other bands and stuff. I don't know if he normally does solo stuff. Like, I don't know his whole thing. I need to delve into all his music, because I really love this album. But yeah, I mean, like, really makes me too. And a couple of people have told me this, how good the Indiana music scene is, and probably, and really, like, specifically Indianapolis, and I think that's where Liquids is from. But apparently, yeah, there's some really good bands there, which I love when music's coming out of a place where you wouldn't, you know, like, you wouldn't think about it. You know what I mean? Indiana's not your first thought of like, where are the like new up and coming bands, but I mean, this one right here is fucking great. And like I said, I randomly found them on YouTube, but like, they're not on social media. I don't think there's any social media for them. Album's not on Spotify, but it is on Bandcamp. I mean, you can hear the songs on YouTube and shit. I don't know if it's like on Amazon or iTunes or anything like that, but I mean, you know, I mean, all the albums I talk about tonight, you should go pick up. But yeah, this one is just really, really damn good. Like it's a really like fun listen. It has the same appeal. Like don't get me wrong, Liquids doesn't sound like mixtapes at all. Like I don't feel like they would be out of place on a bill together. Like I think Liquids and mixtapes could probably play a show if mixtapes was still around. You know, I mean, like I feel like they could fit on a bill and it would be super weird. But like what I do think they have in a similarity is it's kind of the same appeal that made me fall in love with mixtapes is the songs are short, sweet, and simple. Like it's a bunch of songs in a short amount of time. You have a fun time listening to it. Like just really, you know, really well done. So, I mean, I would definitely say go check this out. I know they've been around for a couple years. They have a few other releases out on their Bandcamp page, and like a good chunk of these songs were on older releases, but these are better recorded and produced versions. I would definitely say I prefer these over some of the older ones. But just really, really good band. I would say go check out. And also, I forgot to mention, I'll put up a Spotify playlist of which again, this album's not on Spotify, so this won't help you. But of everything else I play tonight, it'll be on a Spotify playlist if you want to go check it out. But this one, go check out the whole record. But 3 ones that I would say really step out or stand out, and you should probably go check out first would be Don't Want to Get to Know You. That is easily my favorite song on the record. Strutter, an amazing, amazing Kiss cover, and More Than a Friend. And like I said, that's just a really fun like punk rock record. Like you're just going to have a fun time listening to it. It's short and sweet. Like it's so many songs in such a short amount of time. And you know, I like that. No song overstays its welcome. You know what I mean? It's there and then it's gone. But you know, in this next record, I said it a second ago with you know, Liquids being released at the end of January. But January 1st, we got the Dirty Nil with Fuck Art. And it is no secret my love for this record. We had Luke Bentham on the show back in March, and I've played this album. I've played the songs a ton on the radio show. I've talked about this record a lot on this here podcast. And yeah, my favorite record of the year so far. And I mean, we're halfway through and nothing's touched it. So I mean, this is one I would really like to see the album that would take its place in number 1, because it would have to be a really good fucking record. Like the Replacements, all of a sudden Paul Westerberg would have to be like, oh hey motherfuckers, like we just wrote a record and like drop it. But yeah, I have undying love for the Dirty Nil as a whole. I mean, I think they're one of the best bands doing it right now. But Fuck Art, I mean, it's a great follow up to Master Volume. And I really think, too, like, I've been looking forward to it. You know, it was released January 1st. And since the beginning of the year, I've been listening to it going, I think it's going to be a good summer record. And, you know, as it gets nicer out, I mean, it is kind of summer now, but, you know, it's finally getting nice. And we really get that, like, really sunny end of June, beginning of, like, July weather. Like, it's a record to roll your windows down and drive around and listen to and share the riffs with you know, with everyone. But like again, like with their progression, like I love it because like throughout, I don't feel like any of their records sound the same, but the progression's very natural. Like I think if you go back and listen to like Higher Power, which is now, you know, their first record and came out 5 years ago, like it's a great record. And it's like there are songs on there that like, and then it did get some radio play, but like, you know, you could hear the appeal, but like you know, like a little mass appeal where it's like, oh yeah, I can hear that on rock radio a little, but it's like I feel like they still, and I like that record, but it's like, you know, there were still times where I don't think it was as consistent, and they were still kind of finding their sound. That's where I think the best songs, like I'll say this, like Master Volume as a whole, I think the best songs on that are ones that would have fit on Master, or yeah, what am I saying? Higher Power. My apology, Higher Power, their first record. I think the best songs on Higher Power would have fit on Master Volume. I think the best ones on there, like Zombie Eyed, Friends in the Sky, Wrestle You to Husker Du, like all those ones. I feel like every song title I just said, I feel like just rhymed as I said them all together. But like songs like all those, I feel like could fit on Master Volume, could have fit on the follow up. So like which, you know, also look at those are my favorite ones. So obviously I think those are ones they built upon when they did Master Volume. And, you know, I think that's probably my favorite Dirty Nil record. But like with Fuck Art, I think it's an even more progression. And like, it's even like, this is probably their most overall mainstream friendly record. You know what I mean? Like I really like it. It's really, this band has to blow the fuck up off this record. You know, Master Volume did a lot for them. That did get radio play. But like this one even has more, I feel like, wide commercial appeal. Cause like this band, the highest compliment, I mean, like, I mean, just this record, I won't even talk about the band in general, but I mean, just on this record, it's like they go from sounding like the Cheap Trick to the Replacements to Sum 41 to Husker Du to T-Rex to Metallica to Green Day, like all in one band. Like this trio goes, and like I think one of the most impressive ones is the Metallica sound, because again, it's a trio, and I mean they're just a fucking power. I mean they're a true, by definition, power trio. Like they really, it's insane the amount of noise the three of them make, but like the way that all those sounds work together so well. Like it's not like they're throwing all these genres together and it sounds really fucked up and like mishmashy. Like it all works amazing. And like I that's the other reason why I think they're just gonna, they keep getting bigger, but I think really blow up to like where they'll be like, you know, a household name in rock music. Like, because they have the appeal where it's like the Dirty Nil, I feel like you could like, and I notice it just by like on like Instagram and shit, like all the people that I follow and shit who like, you know, who are from different circles of music and like different things, are different ages and shit, like different walks of life, but they all like the Dirty Nil. Cause it's like if you're into classic rock, there's the classic rock vibe to them. If you're just into 90s music, there's a very 90s vibe. If you're into early 2000s pop punk, like I said, like Sum 41, I would say Lit. Like I was listening to Lit's A Place in the Sun recently, and I mean that is a great pop rock record. Like they really, Lit doesn't get enough credit for just being able to write really good pop rock songs. Like My Own Worst Enemy, obviously, to this day, I feel like gets played somewhere. It's being played on a radio station somewhere, like every second of every day. But like that record as a whole, like that band is really good at writing hooks and really simple riffs. But you know, the Dirty Nil like really just has this broad reach where like again they sound like all these different bands. And I mean, it makes sense when I talked to Luke. You know, I mean, I wanted to talk about influence and stuff, and I mean, he really appreciates, he knows where his influence, you know what I mean? Like he found where his roots were, you know what I mean? Like he maybe had the bands that he started with, but he went back and found the bands that influenced them, and you know, like so on and so forth. And like really, I think that education really helps with their sound. Like, you know, all the three of them know what the fuck they're doing. And also, I mean, I gotta say, like Ross joined the band on Master Volume, and he is on there. But I feel like he even more on this one, you hear him probably even more. And like the real use of him, like his backing vocals and his screams, as well as his bass playing. He's an amazing bass player. He doesn't just play fucking root notes. Like he really holds it down, including when Luke is like soloing and stuff like that. Him and Kyle are really strong rhythm section, which you need to have in a trio. Like you can't hide behind, you know, the less people you have on that stage, the less you have to hide behind. And as a trio, I mean, I really feel, you know, even more than any other configuration, it's really important to have a solid, you know, to lock in and everything, and be tight with the bass player and drummer. But I think Ross being really, you know, I mean, he's been in the band now for like 4 years, so he's not, you know, he's kind of the new guy, but he's not really. And you know, and Dave was great. I mean, Dave brought his own thing to the band. But I mean, I think anyone would tell you it would, you know, if you listen to the Dirty Nil, I think they're very different. You know, I think what Ross brings to the table and what Dave brought to the table are two very different things. But while I do like Dave, I like Ross's, like what Ross has brought to the table in that kind of era of the band, I think even more. And yeah, I think utilizing him on here, like, because you really, when you look, like he's maybe, you know, he's not like co-vocalist or anything like that. Like, he's doing backing vocals, but he's like on every song. He's either doing harmonies, backups, screaming. Like, he's really being utilized, I think on this album more than before, and I think that's part of what really makes it, you know, like again, because like just as a musician standpoint, I think they're also a musician's band where it's like you can appreciate them because like Luke's riffs, I mean, are so, no one's playing like that. Like even though he's not even really reinventing the wheel either. Just no one's. I kind of brought this up with like Billy Zoom's playing on Alphabet Land, the album that X put out last year. Like, it's not that Billy Zoom, like, you know, like Billy Zoom has and he's an amazing guitar player, but it's like, you know, you can hear his influences like Chuck Berry and like, you know, those like classic old time rock and roll guys. And it's like, you know, Luke kind of goes back and I feel like kind of takes from the same, you know, like well that Billy does, but you don't hear people doing that anymore. So it's like, yeah, you know, people have done those styles for, but you're not hearing it in music anymore. So it's like, it sounds so refreshing to hear. Like, to hear a guitar rock record like Fuck Art, where like every song, there's just, you know what I mean? Like, there's just a riff. Every song has a riff in it. Like, there's fucking like amazing solos. There's no synth on it. You know what I mean? Like, it's a rock record. It's a straight up rock record. And, you know what I mean? And the same, you know, kind of like with Liquids, and it's like the album artwork and the name and everything just fitting so well. I mean, the same with this. I mean, calling your album Fuck Art and, you know, the album art with the dog and everything on it, and just Nil in capital, you know, in capital letters with the pink lettering and stuff. Like, just everything about it, I feel like just works on this. I think when you wrap it all together, it's just a perfect record. And you know, and look at the other thing too is Master Volume. They did pretty well off of. It was a great record. I loved it. I feel like most people did. And you know, you got to follow that up. You know, maybe it's not your sophomore album, but you're following up an album that got you guys, you know, a decent amount of success and attention. And doing that, you know, sometimes can be disastrous. But with this, I think they gave what I think is really just a very fucking solid, you know, follow-up to Master Volume, which, you know, again, could have not went that way. You know, the Dirty Nil, like, maybe could have came back and gave us something where it's like, oh, nice try, but, like, maybe next time. But, like, no, they came back and, you know, I think maybe even more on Master Volume, maybe even more than they did on that, with the blending of genres. And, you know, and again, like, finding a way to make their sound more mainstream, like in a way where I think they could appeal to a like mass audience, but without losing quality or integrity. Like, I feel like it's a natural progression, you know, like, these are the songs they want to write. This is the sound they want to have. You know, I mean, it just happens that, like, you do have songs like Blunt Force Concussion where I go, that should be all over fucking rock radio. Same with Doom Boy. I mean, that should be all over like rock radio. Like, you know, and I do like it because they do get embraced. You know, you may not hear them everywhere, but radio does embrace them, like commercial radio. And you know, the radio doesn't always get it right. I love radio, but radio doesn't always get it right. And you know, Dirty Nil is one that a lot of like alt stations and rock stations seem to get behind, and that's really good because like that's a band. This is a band that I want to hear all over the radio. Like, I want them to play the Dirty Nil ad nauseum, where I'm like, I don't want to hear that song again. Like, I hope for them to get that big because they absolutely deserve it. But you know, and Luke too. I mean, Luke, you know, again, they're all amazing. Kyle's an amazing drummer. Ross, an amazing bass player. But Luke, I mean, besides the voice, goddamn, really a rock and roll voice, like a traditional rock and roll voice. But like also, really, I mean, I would call him a guitar god. Like, I see him bleeding in. Like, even my guitar playing, like, I find myself playing more, kind of venturing away from just kind of you know, traditional 3-chord stuff and kind of playing more, you know, like riffing, even if it's built off like 3 chords, like really riffing more and kind of blending things like he does. And I think I know Zach, you know, my buddy Zach, who is on the show quite a bit, which shout out to him, actually, huge fucking shout out to him. But the Dirty Nil did put out for Record Store Day, they put out Master Volume and Fuck Art, the cassettes. And I was looking for those because I do enjoy cassettes from time to time, and those look pretty fucking sick. And I love both those records. Like, that's another one, talking about revising my best of list. I don't remember if Master Volume was on my top 10 list for 2018, but I can tell you it is now my number one. Whatever album I had number one for that year, it would now be Master Volume. You know, and I can't remember. I don't have it in front of me. Master Volume very well may have been on my top 10, but if it was, I can tell you it was like between like 10 and 6, where like now a few years later I go, no, that's like one of my favorite albums of the last like 5 years. But anyways, Zach did find them. He did score them on Record Store Day and got them for me. So huge shout out to him. He fucking rules. And I was telling him, he kind of made me sad because I didn't go to Record Store Day, but I was telling him, you know, I started thinking about it once he messaged me and said he got them, because I mean, I knew it was Record Store Day, but I wasn't even planning on. I mean, we have no record stores here, and you know, the closest I could either go to Erie, and they have one store, the Exchange, and you know, that's going to be it. It's going to be slim pickings, or I could go to like Buffalo, which has a few record stores participating. But, you know, it made me sad because I started thinking about it. And the record stores, you know, I really haven't partaken in a few years now, but all the record stores I used to go to yearly, like every year for quite a while, I think have all closed down. Like Record Theater, both record theaters in Buffalo, used to go there. Those are both closed now. Oh, man, I can't remember the name. It used to be, I think, on like Bryant Avenue. It was like right off Elmwood Street. But and I bought my first Jawbreaker album. I bought Chesterfield Kings there in 2013. I can't remember the name, but that was always a stop. That was always a stop. They've been gone for a few years. You know, no. I think they're gone. They relocated at one point, but I don't think they're around at all now. I can't. I know it helps no one because I can't remember the name. But if for some reason, if you can somehow from all these vague details know what the record store I'm talking about is, I'd love to know because it's really good. They mostly had punk. They had like punk and kind of like classic rock because they would have like old records too from like, you know, like your standard, like, you know, from like the 70s and 80s. You go find like a Tom Petty, maybe a Cheap Trick, you know, maybe like Foreigner and Styx, things like that. But like, you know, predominantly. It was punk, like it was mostly punk, and it was like in a room. It was pretty small, but yeah, they're gone. The one in Jamestown here that we used to have, Good City, they're gone, and yeah, like all the ones from like, you know, 8-9 years ago that I would go spend way too much, hundreds of dollars. I've had some benders on Record Store Day, and yeah, they're all gone. But anyway, yeah, shout out to Zach for getting those for me. But yeah, I can't wait to listen to Fuck Art on cassette the way it was meant to be heard. And for this one is on Spotify, so you can find these 3 songs on this week's Spotify playlist for the podcast. But Hang Your Moon, which is my favorite song on the album and one of my favorite Dirty Nil songs. Blunt Force Concussion, that's one that I could hear all over the radio. And Damage Control, which, you know, like I was saying, Luke deserving more credit as a guitar player. That's some fucking riffing. That song, that one sticks out. I feel like, and Hang Your Moon's my favorite, but I feel like Damage Control is most people's favorite. That seems to be the consensus. Like, that's the one that really sticks out. I remember when I told Zach to check out the Dirty Nil, and Hang Your Moon was the first one. He liked it, but I think after that, the 2 that he said stuck out after that were Doom Boy and Damage Control. And they put out a great music video recently for Damage Control too. So go check those out. That's the other thing. Like, you can hear those songs on the playlist, but like they've also made, I mean, damn, I think they have 3 or 4 music videos at least for this album. So I mean, even if you just go on YouTube, you can like, and they make great music videos too. That's what I love, is like in a time where I feel like a lot of music videos are just live footage and shit like that. Like, they've actually had some really funny ones, including their Elvis 77 one, you know, which was, you know, during quarantine and everything. You know, they kind of made do with what they had and did a really, really good job. But moving on to the next record, Tiger's Jaw, I Won't Care How You Remember Me. This one came out back in March. And I've said it before, you know, I've never hated Tiger's Jaw by any means. But, they were never a band that I was like, paid super like much attention to. I'd seen them open live a few times for some bands. Like they were okay live. I was like, it wasn't terrible, but I was just never one to really check out their albums or anything. I didn't really care for anything I'd really heard. Just one of those bands, not a band that like I hated by any means. I'm not like, fuck this band, but I'm just like, yeah, it's whatever. Kind of indifferent. And after hearing this album, I mean, this one really has gotten me on board, and funny enough, I mean, they're another one kind of like the Dirty Nil, forgetting how long they've been together. But I mean, Tiger's Jaw's been around for 16 years now. I mean, not that they were super active, I think, in the beginning. They've definitely been more active in like the last, I'd say, like decade of their career. But they've been around for a while, and I forget it because I still kind of thinking them as a young band. There's just something about them that I think of them still as a young band. But I mean, they're really not. But in a good way, because I'm listening to this now, and I think after being around for so long, like, they've gotten really good. Like, they're a band who I think has always really been into like melody, and like even though they're kind of pop punk and like indie, like they're still kind of they kind of still dabble in that, like in the pop world. And I think after doing it now for so long, I think they've really like gotten good at crafting like pop songs. Like this record, it's also like pop punk. I kind of throw them in there. I think part of that too comes from bands that they've toured with. Like, I mean, they are kind of pop punky, but I feel like they're also like, I would say more than anything in this album in particular, it's almost like an adult pop punk record, like in some aspects. Like, it's not super fast and raw, but the spirit's there. You know what I mean? Like, there's songs where it's like, there's beautiful melodies and nice synths and stuff, which, a lot of times I don't like music with a lot of synths or a lot of keyboard, whatever. I mean, you hear music, not like I hate it all the time, but like normally not super into things where it's prominent, but it works really well. I think this record, and really just Tiger's Jaw, I think the sound of the band, I think it works. It just complements with what they do. But I think on this album, they've gotten really good. Same with like harmonizing. I mean, again, they've been doing it so long, but Ben and Brianna's vocals just working together really, really well. They really, in this really soft, like that's the thing when I was saying too, where it's like almost like grown up pop punk, where it's like, it's not abrasive vocals. It's very like, both are kind of soft-spoken, soft voice, but both very nice. Both have very nice voices. And it's like, but not super angsty, I wouldn't say. It's like I don't hear a lot of angst. I hear, you hear the spirit of, and again, like I highly doubt that any of them would consider themselves a pop punk band or call what they do pop punk, but you do hear the influence. I mean, I think they have influences in that realm. And again, I've seen them open for like Yellow Card and Newfound Glory. So, I mean, they're, they are from within that scene. But this is kind of like a grown up version of it. And again, like a band that I like that doesn't shy away. And it depends if you do it well, because I don't always like this in my music. But like this, where it's like they do flirt with being, kind of a pop band in a lot of ways, but doing it really well, kind of doing more indie pop. And I think it works really, it's genuine. You know what I mean? It's not forced and contrived. Like it's worked out in a way where I feel like it's catchy because of the hook or the melody, not because it was overproduced and they're like throwing in extra shit and layering things in the studio. So it, you know what I mean? To like make it sound flashy or something, like not in that way. Like, it's poppy in ways where they know how to make, they know how to get something stuck in your head, something that you want to, hear and you want to hear stuck in your head. And Brianna's voice too, like, I think it's a highlight of the band. Like I think that was one of the first things that really got me, like, as I was listening to this record and kind of going into it, where it's like, all right, I like, like I know of them. It's like, they're okay. Like I'll give it a listen. And I think as it kind of broke in, I think track 2 she's on, and I think right away that was kind of the one that I was like, oh, okay, like this is Cat's Cradle. Cat's Cradle is track 2, and one of my favorite songs on the album. But like, yeah, once I heard that and I like heard her voice and everything, what works really well too is her voice with the piano lines. Like, again, not always big on piano and synth, but her vocal melodies with her piano lines underneath it are very, like, you know, she'll do a lot of, not even play a lot of chords. She'll kind of go note for note, almost playing her vocal melody on the keys, you know, underneath her vocals. And it sounds beautiful. Like, it's this really, again, like really nicely done, you know, like indie pop, indie rock, pop punk, you know, alternative rock, like, I don't know, whatever genre, subgenre you want to throw on it. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just really good music, you know. But I do think you hear a band who's just progressed over the years, and I think you know, they've matured with the music. And again, like, I don't know how old they are or how old they were when they started the band, but like, you know, they were probably teenagers when they started in like 2005. And I think they're all like in their 30s now. And, you know, it's like you kind of grow up with it, you know, or you hope you grow up, you know, you hope you weren't writing the same songs you were when you were a teenager or in 2005. And I think this was just such a big step up. I mean, I've had people tell me I got to go back and listen to their other stuff, because I don't think it's so much a case that their old stuff's not good. I think this was exceptionally good. I think they really outdid themselves on this record. But I think I just got to go give the older stuff a chance again. You know, I just don't think I gave it, a fair enough shot. Or at the time, you know. The other thing, too, is there's just times where there's so many bands that I love that there were times where I listened to. Tom Waits, I love Tom Waits now. But there's been times in my life where I heard him, I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm like, who would like this? What is this? Like, I totally thought that at one point in my life, and now I fucking love Tom Waits. I think he's a huge talent. So, you know, I think it's just kind of one of those things, but just really good. Another thing too is like just non-pretentious indie rock. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of indie rock from a band who like will play the Warped Tour or will play with Newfound Glory and shit. You know, just really good band. I would say the top three on this one would be Cat's Cradle, Hesitation, and Lemon Mouth, that you can go hear on that playlist, which is up now. But we're going to keep moving on here. I got a few more records for you. This one is my second favorite of the year. I talked about it on the May Rundowns just a few episodes ago. But Pardoner with Came Down Different. I mean, this just came out May of... this album's been out like a little under a month. I don't think it's been a full 4 weeks that it's been out. But this record, another one just randomly finding. Okay, so I found this band while getting together, I think, either the March or April rundown for the podcast. I was looking up what albums were released that month, and I happened to see, I've brought up album artwork a few times now, but like, which really is a testament. Like, you know, I mean, album artwork shouldn't be the only thing. Obviously, the music needs to be good. There's tons of great records with terrible album covers, but like, a good album cover will at least draw you in. You know what I mean? From there, the music has to be able to kind of stand on its own, but like, it can at least draw you in. And with Pardoner, I saw their single for Bunny's Taxi and the album art, the single art for it, and it was just really like, oh, what's this? Like, it looked like right up my alley. I'm like, oh, I gotta check this out. And I did. It ended up being really, really good. Another one where the aesthetic and like the like, you know, the look, the artwork and stuff fit the music. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those things where it's cool artwork, shitty music. It's cool artwork, cool music, you know, and really cool band. I mean, this is really, it's like, I really just like, to dumb it down, I'd say it's like stoner 90s indie rock, like at its best. Like, this is Dinosaur Jr., it's I mean, you hear you could definitely hear some like Husker Du. I know that's 80s, but like Husker Du and Sugar and just kind of Bob Mould, you know, anything kind of Bob Mould on it. And even newer band wise, I would say Culture Abuse. You know, I feel like there is a Culture Abuse vibe that which, I mean, they're also from San Francisco. But I mean, this album, like I said, it's been out for a little under a month, and I mean, it's already like the second favorite of the year. It's hitting me just like Fuck Art, where it's like I find myself listening to it. If I don't listen to the album front to back every day, I at least listen to 1 or 2 songs a day off of it. You know, I see this. And that's the thing too, is like this band I don't think has a huge like, you know, you're not going to hear them on top 40 radio, but this is a band that I see getting a big cult following where like if you're a fan of that, like I could see them going over really well at Riot Fest or, you know, any kind of fest like that where it's like people are really into like, you know, like 90s alt rock and shit like that, you know, Sebado, again, Dinosaur Jr., you know, anything like Lou Barlow, you know, anything like that. Like I see them having a really good, you know, on both ends. I think that, and then also a younger crowd, because they're doing something cool. Like they really, what I like about this album and their songs too, is like they have one song called Spike, and I mean, there's tons of examples of this on the record, but I'll use Spike as one of them. It's a great song, and musically, it's very interesting. Like it goes in directions you don't expect. Like, they do a lot of things on here where you think you know where the song is going, you think you know what the chord progression is going to be, but you don't. Like, you really fucking don't. And sometimes you forget it. Sometimes you've listened to the album a bunch and you'll still be like, oh shit, like I forgot about this or that, you know, like just really, really amazing. Like I love that. I love something that keeps you interesting or, you know, like interested in it like that. It's not, you know, it's kind of it's the other side of that. Like I said, how I love short, simple, and sweet. There are short, simple, and sweet songs on this album, but there's also ones where, you know, it is a little more complex and it does go different places. And I love those as well. You know, like I think that's a really strong point of this record, that they really go just different. Even right away, actually, even on the first song, Donna Said, like. That one, even from the beginning, kind of goes in a few places where you're like, oh, fuck, I didn't see it going there. And all of a sudden, it just takes you there, you know? They kind of remind me of, like, a heavier Arches a Loaf, you know? Because Arches a Loaf, including post-Icky Metal, I feel like got pretty experimental on songs. And there's songs on Icky Metal where, like, they go places you don't think they were going to go. And I really feel like Partner definitely has that. You know, Arches a Loaf is another one I would definitely say I get a strong vibe of, you know, that another band where it's like that 90s vibe, you know, but also done really well where just like with Liquids, it's not a novelty of its time. You know, you go, oh, it sounds like they listen to a lot of 90s like indie rock, but they don't sound like a novelty of it. You know, they are their own band, they are their own sound. And like, you know, just really like another one, just really no band sounds like them right now. It's like they really, they're not as riff heavy as say like the Dirty Nil, but like still some really interesting guitar work, like some really cool stuff. I think one of the best things they do, you know, obviously it's kind of attributed to the Pixies, but like the whole quiet, loud, quiet format, like just that whole thing. And you know, you can also flip that around to loud, quiet, loud, like just either they're very good at that. They're very good with dynamics. There's one song, Lucky Day, where like it goes from sounding, I'd say like the Velvet Underground. Most of the song reminds me of the Velvet Underground, and then just goes in this fucking crazy part where like, I mean, I would say it doesn't sound too off of like Every Time I Die. Like in the same song goes from like Velvet Underground to Every Time I Die, and works, and also works, but and that's again with predictability. It's like, yeah, you can hear it kind of building up. Like you're waiting for something. You know, it's not going to sound like a real quiet song the whole time, but they hit you in a way it doesn't go where you think it would go. And I think even after hearing it a few times, you still like you're not resolved with it. Like you're still like, oh shit, like I can't believe it went there. But like it just does. Like the whole album like keeps you on your feet. Every song has its own personality too. That's what I like. Like it doesn't get redundant. It's a fun listen. Like, you know, and songs will go weird places, but I would say for the most part, it never gets boring. You know what I mean? Like there's very few, and look, if I really want to be nitpicky, I'm sure there's parts where I go, all right, maybe you can cut out this experimental part or this or that. Like you can cut some of the fat, but like overall they keep it interesting. So like, even though they're not straight to the point songs. Maybe some of them, there is some, maybe they do take you different places. You enjoy it, it doesn't get boring. So, I mean, this is, like I said, this is my second favorite album of the year. I strongly suggest this one, but 3 really strong songs on it: Bunny's Taxi, Fuck You, and I Want to Get High to the Music. And all of those are kind of good examples of like Bunny's Taxi, I feel like, is a good example of the more kind of going different places, doing different things, being experimental. And then less song like I Want to Get High to the Music is like them kind of being like that song, I think, is less than 2 minutes, and it's just really catchy and just a really fun, like I said, like stoner, like indies, like 90s stoner indie rock kind of, like, just done really well, really simple, like, kind of repeating, guitar riff and stuff, and just really, really good. I really enjoy this one. And, I've fallen in love with it really fast. I was excited, though. After I heard Bunny's Taxi and I heard a couple other songs, I couldn't wait for the whole thing to come out. And it did not disappoint, so definitely go check that one out. Got a couple more here for you. Glitter with Life Is Not a Lesson. This one came out back in February. And this is obviously Ned's from Title Fight, his post-Title Fight band. And I mean, my whole thing about this, I don't know tons of people listen to Title Fight, so I don't know what everyone, I don't know what majority thinks. But like, look if we can't have Title Fight, I think this is a good consolation prize. This is his second record that he's put out under Glitterer, and both have been really, really solid. And, it's kind of like, I'll bring up Husker Du again, but like, which I think is probably a big influence on him. I feel like you hear in the music, but like, this is kind of Sugar. You know what I mean? If Title Fight was Husker Du, this is Ned Sugar. And it's like, and I mean that in the way too, not just that it's like his post, like his big band, then he goes to another one, but like, it's not exactly the same. You know what I mean? It's just like Sugar's not Husker Du, but it's still that same guy. You know what I mean? Like, there are similarities where you're like, there's a personality or there's attributes to Bob Mould that, like, no matter if it's solo or Sugar or Husker Du, you kind of know Bob Mould wrote it, that kind of thing. And it's the same thing here with Ned's stuff, where it's like, even if it's not Title Fight, there's some songs on here where you go, oh yeah, like you could definitely see like there's a song, Try Harder, really, really good song. And I think that could have been a Title Fight song if it was reworked musically. Like, it's a little more stripped back. So like, I kind of feel like if it's almost like what a Title Fight song probably would start like, stripped back before they made it really, like heavy. And so I mean, you can hear it, but it doesn't sound straight up like Title Fight. Like, definitely not. You know what I mean? Like, that goes for all Glitterer. Like, there's things about it that I think you hear just because it's the same person writing the songs, but he did, definitely way more poppy. But as poppy as Ned's gonna get, it's kind of like I've talked about a couple times on here with bands where like it's like indie pop. You know what I mean? It is kind of weird and a little more rough around the edges than, your traditional pop music. It's not really top 40 pop, but like, underneath everything you do hear, it's like rough around the edges pop. You do hear some really good melodies. You do hear some really catchy stuff. I would say a huge thing too, Ned's bass playing sticks out in Glitter in a way that it never did in Title Fight, and not to say that he wasn't a good bass player in that band, but he's playing more just punk rock bass and playing a lot more like, root notes and shit. Where on this, there's songs where his bass lines are like the driving force of the song. There's one, I can't remember the name of the song. It's not on this one. It's on the first Glitter record, but it's like one of the best songs on it. And it's like, it's basically just him and bass. And I don't think there's any other instrument. I just think it's vocal and bass. And like, I love it. Like, it's so different. You don't hear things like that. Like, it's very, it's really good. And again, like, I hope his fans aren't giving him shit for doing different things, because I really like seeing this side of him. I like seeing him write melodies like this. I like seeing his bass, again, like his bass playing, he's really showing his chops in a way that he never did before, which I think is very cool. I also think it's cool too, because like, there is a like, there's kind of a 90s vibe. I know I keep bringing up 90s, but I love fucking music that sounds like it's from the 90s. But like Title Fight always kind of had that. I feel like Glitterer does, but I feel like they take from different bands. You know what I mean? Like I feel like his influences are still kind of from the same era, but like this one sounds much more like Pinkerton era Weezer than you would ever hear from like his old stuff. You know, I think it's interesting though that I feel like it still comes from the same era, just different bands. You know, just different bands. That's all. But I think too, once he kind of gets it detached, you know, detached from Title Fight, I think he'll take a few more releases. I still think people, even me, I mean, look I keep mentioning, you know, Title Fight, and you just can't help it, you know, if you're talking about Ned right now. But like, you know, I think at some point maybe he'll shed it enough where you're not going to think about that part of his career or, you know, associated with that. And I think Glitter on its own, I think will do, I think, very well. You know, I think he's still a new, you know, even though he has the 2 albums out, I think he's still in a part, you know, like in a phase with this where like the people who know, you know, he's not huge. So like he's not known just off the name Glitter. So a lot of people who know him from his other stuff, where I think once he kind of keeps going out there, playing shows, releasing music, it'll get to a point where people don't even think of his old stuff. They won't think of him being a part of a band. It'll be like, oh no, it'll be Glitter. That will be his band. You know, it won't be his new band. It will just be his band, you know. But a really, really good album. The 3 songs I would say on this one, Didn't Want It, Fire, and Little Backwards Glance, all really, really good. You can go check those out on the playlist. And I got one more for you here before I'm all done. And that is Assertion with Intermission. This one came out in April of good old 2021. And this is another one. I am a fool for trios, and this is another solid trio lineup where it's just 3 guys making so much noise. Just a really good rock record. The biggest one with this, I've played stuff off this on the I think the April Rundown. We played something, and I've definitely talked about him. But William Goldsmith of Sunny Day Real Estate and the Foo Fighters and a whole lot more. He is the drummer in this band, and he hasn't drummed for a while. This is kind of his like return to music after a while. But you know, it's kind of like the big thing with the band. You know, he's back in and everything. But I really, really good. You know, it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, you'll check it out because like, oh, it's William Goldsmith. Like, fuck yeah. But like, that only holds so much merit. The music has to be good, and this is a really solid record. And you know, I don't know as far as drumming goes if William was drumming much, you know, like when he wasn't playing in bands and stuff. Like I said, kind of his return. But like he has some really good, like really some highlights. Like his drumming, outside of just being, you know, from familiar bands, his drumming is a huge highlight on this album. I mean, just really like driving rock drums. You know, that's what I love about it, is like it's emo influenced rock. You know, it has this, you know, you get the Sunny Day Real Estate and the Foo Fighters connection, obviously. And, you know, the other 2 guys in the band, you know, I know they've been in a bunch of other bands too and stuff. They're not really a super group, but it's like, you know, they're all older musicians, and, you know, this isn't their first band or anything like that. And I think this is just 3 really good musicians who wrote like a rock record, but kind of come from that like emo punk world. So it's like, you know, again, it's a rock record, but it has this like kind of indie vibe to it, kind of like punk vibe, like, you know, again, like Sunny Day Real Estate emo kind of, you know, thing where it's like, it's very cool. You know, it comes from a different place and just sounds really unique. But at the end of the day, it's just a really fun record with like really good, like, you know, as a trio, it's like, there's just some really good riffs on it. You know, the drums are just really, really solid, and some really cool bass lines too. Like that's what I love. I think as a trio too, a lot of times things will pop out more because you're competing with less stuff. You know, like you'll hear a really good guitar part because there's not 2 guitars. You know, it's not 2 guitars dueling for your attention. It's just one. And then same with the bass, where it's like, you know, there's not a wall of guitars, drowning out the bass. Like you can hear prominent bass lines, and where he's kind of like noodling around on the fretboard and stuff, and kind of moving around. Like you can hear all that, and I think it all really makes for a really like fun record. The only thing I will say about this, I would say my only real complaint about the record is the songs definitely could be shorter. I will say this album is 9 songs and 42 minutes, which is quite different from Liquids with 27 songs in like, I think 42 minutes. There's quite a difference there. It's just, I think, again, they're good songs. I think there are a few where I go, you probably could shave off a minute or two, but like outside of that, like really, really good. I see them being like, I will say though, some of the longer parts and some of the parts that I would probably even argue like, oh, you should cut out off the album, I think in a live setting would be really cool to hear them jam on some of these songs and some of the longer parts. I think would be really, really cool. Like, I'm really hoping that they're going to tour off of this record, because I see them being a really solid live band again. Because too, they've all been doing it for a very long time in other bands, and they're all seasoned musicians. Where I think a live show, I get the feeling too, just listening to this album, that they could replicate it live. There's not a lot of overdubs and stuff. It's a very, just very rock record made by a trio kind of album, which obviously I'm a fool for, if you're listening to my list of albums that I'm loving this year. But I see them being a really, really good live band. And it's great to hear William Goldsmith playing again too, someone who's been in so many iconic bands. It's it's a waste to not have him making music. And like I said too, like his drumming is a great part of this record. It's not just, oh, what does he contribute? Well, he's that guy from Sunny Day Real Estate and Foo Fighters. Like, I mean, no, like his drumming is actually an integral part of the record. And actually, I mean, the first song on the album, Down Into the Depths, which is one of the best songs on the album, opens up with an amazing drum beat. Really, really good stuff. So really good anthemic songs too. And I would almost say, I don't know the vocalist's name. My apologies. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but Bob Nana vibes I get. He kind of sounds like Bob Nana, which I really like. And again, it kind of goes where I said, like emo influenced rock, kind of like with like a Hey Mercedes or something, where it's like kind of rock music that has that like, yeah, we listen to Fugazi and stuff kind of vibe to it. So I really, really enjoy it. Go check this one out. I would say 3 songs off this one, Down Into the Depths, really good album opener. Defeated and Pushed to the Limit, all really, really good. And those songs, as well as all the other ones I mentioned tonight, minus Liquids, that one sadly is not on Spotify, at least yet. When it is, I'll start putting those songs on playlists, but everything else is on this week's Spotify playlist. And that is our episode. That is the best albums of 2021 so far. It is, obviously not all the, lots of other good things have been released this year, whether it is singles, other albums, EPs, live stuff, a couple good compilations. But I thought I'd talk about full lengths. But let me know, what are your favorite, and it doesn't have to be full lengths. It can be any just new music released this year, but powerchordhour@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what you've been listening to this year, what your favorites are, and what you think will probably be on your top 10. I mean, there's still time for new records to come out and, knock some of your favorites off your list and everything. But, 6 months in, you can at least kind of, like the Dirty Nil I said, like it's going to take a lot to take that out of number 1. Like I could see me being naive maybe the first month or two, being like even Partner, like I said, that's my second favorite, but it's like, it is still new. So I'm like, damn, like I wonder if I'll still feel this way in a couple months, and we'll find out. But like, like Fuck Art Now, I felt that way for so long. It's safe to say I'm going to keep feeling that way. But I'd love to know what you think is going to end up on your top 10, what you're loving so far, and all that. powerchordhour@gmail.com. And and if you want to follow us online, we're on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Power Chord Hour. That is our handle on all social media. If you go follow us, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast if you would. That is a great way to support the show, as well as spreading the word, telling your friends about the show. That's also a huge help. Word of mouth is a huge thing. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, follow us. Go check out the playlist so you can hear the music that I talked about. You heard me talk about the music. Now go hear the music on our Spotify page. And also the radio show, a new radio show every Friday night, 10 to midnight Eastern on 107.9 WRFA in Jamestown, New York. And you can listen to that online, WRFALP.com, and hit the big old streaming button on the website, and you can listen to that. And yeah, that is the episode for this week. And I don't know, we'll have a new one next week. I don't know who the guest will be, but tune back in. And if you haven't checked it out, since we did just release it yesterday, so it is still pretty new. You basically got like almost like getting 2 new episodes this week. But we just did a bonus PCH episode with Kyle, my buddy Kyle, who's on all the time. And we just talked about Take Off Your Pants and Jacket for its 20th anniversary. You know, we didn't do our normal like track by track analysis or anything like that, though we did end up talking about every track, though we didn't mean to. But yeah, much shorter than like one of those. This is like a 90-minute episode instead of like a 4-hour episode or a 2-parter. But I had a blast talking to him, and that just came out yesterday. So if you're a Blink-182 fan, go listen to that. If you're not a fan, still go listen to it, because I could use the listeners. But yeah, that is it. We'll have a new one next week for you, next Monday. So tune back in. Until then, though, for the Power Chord Hour, I'm Anthony Merchant. Thank you so much for listening.